Das Wort hat jetzt für die EF.
And now Mr. Farage for the FD Group.
Thank you. What we're seeing in this chamber this morning, and indeed across the whole of Europe, is an irreconcilable cultural difference between Greece and Germany, a split between the north and the south of Europe. The European project is actually beginning to die. Nobody in this room will recognise that, but actually the peoples of Europe are saying we were never asked whether we wanted this. This has been foisted upon us. And we need to understand why EMU doesn't work. Those monsters, Kohl and Mitterrand, backed up with a clever but dangerous Delors, believed that if they put in place an economic and monetary union, then as night follows day, there would be political union, that there would be an acceptance of this project, that the north and south of Europe would converge, that we'd all start to love each other, that we'd all begin to feel a European identity, that we'd all begin to show allegiance to the flag and the anthem. Those of us, of course, that criticised this were told that we were extremists and we lacked vision. Well, one vision we didn't lack is we understood that the countries of Europe are different, and that if you try and force together different people or different economies without first seeking the consent of those people, it is unlikely to work. And the plan has failed. This isn't just Greece we're talking about today. The whole of the Mediterranean now finds itself in the wrong currency. And yet virtually nobody in the political arena has got the courage to stand up and say that. Indeed, I feel that the continent is now divided from north to south. There is a new Berlin Wall, and it's called the euro. And the old enmities have been resumed. Just listen to the way that the German leader of the Christian Democrat group this morning attacked Mr. Tsipras. I think it was absolutely disgusting, but it shows the way north and south now feel about each other. Mr. Tsipras, your country should never have joined the euro. I think you acknowledge that, but the big banks, the big businesses and big politics forced you in. Goldman Sachs, the German arms manufacturers, they were all very happy. And when the bailouts began, they weren't for the Greek people. Those bailouts were to bail out French, German and Italian banks. They haven't helped you at all. And these years of austerity, these years of high unemployment, of increasing poverty, none of it's worked. In fact, your debt-GDP ratio has gone from 100% at the start of the crisis to 180% right now. It would be madness, sir, to continue on this course. You have been very brave. You called that referendum. When one of your predecessors tried to do the same, the bully boys of Brussels had him removed. They tried their best again. Mr. Juncker said you would have to leave the euro and leave the European Union. Even Mr. Schulz, the President of the Parliament, who one would have thought might be neutral, said that if the Greeks voted no, their power supplies may even go down. There were threats and bullying, but the Greeks stood firm. But, sir, you cannot have your cake and eat it. They will give you no more, these people. They can't afford to. If they give you more, they'll have to give other Eurozone members more. So your moment has come. And frankly, if you've got the courage, you should lead the Greek people out of the Eurozone with your head held high. Get back your democracy. Get back control of your country. Give your people the leadership and the hope that they crave. Yes, it'll be tough for the first few months, but with a devalued currency and with friends of Greece all over the world, you will recover.
Für die ENF-Fraktion.
The ENF group, the group leader, Mrs. Le Pen.
Mr. Tsipras, our positions are very different on a whole series of topics. There's no question about that. But we share the desire to give the protagonism back to the people against the interests of the bureaucrats. And so we were quite pleased about the organisation of the referendum. this referendum on austerity in Greece meant a return to the noblest kind of politics in Europe, which is often all too technocratic. Europe's institutions have dropped the mask and shown their true face. Horror. I mean, perhaps that's a good thing. They tried everything to win the referendum. There was all kinds of moral pressure brought to bear. There were forecasts about the disasters that would take place if there was a vote, a no vote. We know about this in France. We had the same kind of thing at the time of the vote on the European Constitution, and the President of the European Parliament sitting here even dared to suggest that your democratically elected government should be overthrown, Mr. Tsipras, and replaced by a government of technocrats. And the IMF report was published on Thursday. The Eurogroup countries had tried to prevent the publication of that, and that was a report that reflected your views that Greece cannot repay her debt because the debt is unsustainable and thus must be renegotiated. And the European Central Bank finally tried to intervene by strangling Greek banks and provoking their closure. I think this is the first time in history that a central bank has, off its own bat, unleashed a completely artificial crisis. But the anger of the Greek people vis-à-vis the austerity was such that they swept everything away. Over and above the threats, the Greek people raised their heads and showed their true mettle. What people would have accepted what the Greek people have put up with for 5 years? Who would have accepted that, ladies and gentlemen, in the EPP and the Liberals who frenetically applauded Mr. Weber's list of charges? Would you accept that kind of campaign, would you? Okay, so make a campaign for it. Why not promise to your respective peoples a 25% cut in wages, a 25% cut in their pensions? Why not put that across to your peoples? They'd love it. And the explosion of infant mortality, a tripling of unemployment. Be brave. Live up to your promises. So, Mr. Tsipras, the euro and austerity are Siamese twins. They're joined at the hip. That's the fact. And you cannot get your people out of austerity unless you allow it to escape from the euro. I think that in agreement with Europe's institutions in a concerted fashion, that Greece must negotiate a way out of this clamp, the steel jaws that are closing on the southern Europe. That's the euro. All other peoples in Europe should look at what's happening in Greece, and maybe an exit from the euro would allow for renewal of durable growth. That's what Mr. Krugman, the Nobel Prize for the economy, has said. What others are afraid of is that Greece will show by leaving the euro that one can survive better outside it than in it. The euro is not irreversible, as you've been trying to sell us the message for years. Europe is not forever. No. The Europe is not something that cannot be reversed. The first crisis of the euro was a financial one stopped by the ECB in 2012, and the second crisis is a political one with peoples who dare to say no. And you can't halt this crisis. After so many mistakes have been made, it's high time to have a concerted dismantling of the euro area. The countries in the euro group would go better and the tensions would be diminished. Thank you.
Das Wort hat jetzt der
Now for non-attached members, Mr. Sinadinos.
Thank you very much indeed. I would first and foremost like to address you, Mr. Schulz, on your unacceptable words about the Greek referendum. Who and on what basis said that if no wins, the Greeks should look for another currency? With what mentality, what competence, what right are you in getting involved in the political happenings in my country? I would like to address the German Chancellor for what she has done. what the Germans did to the Greeks during the Second World War. Over 1 million dead. People were lost, they starved to death, and there was this huge loan to the Third Reich. There are thousands of millions from these repayments which you are refusing to actually include in the question of the debt. And so you dare turn round and speak in this way. And what about our rights? You, I think, and Mr. Weber should be turning to the Chancellor of Germany and asking her about what is due. Now, do you think that the Greeks will bow their heads when they didn't during the slavery of the Ottoman Empire? The decision which was taken yesterday, that no, it was a no, and the Tsipras government now is apparently planning to pass a new agreement, a new memorandum. But yes, we can exist and survive without the Eurozone. The Eurozone either should unite or should dissolve. Thank you.
For the EPP group, Mr. Royal. Prime Minister, I prepared for this debate like everybody else, wondering what would happen. And I hope that the Greek Prime Minister, as Mrs. Harms quite rightly said, would have presented some proposals. Because the shocking thing about the debate and the topic of the last months has been that, well, for many years in my country, we said that the countries in difficulty should be helped. We should express solidarity towards those countries. And what we experienced was that in Portugal, in Spain, in Ireland, they took the opportunity to do their bit and they moved forward. And in Greece too, Prime Minister. You're not even listening, sir. In Greece. I thought you maybe were interested to hear what we had to say.